people figured out and decide to start a family with them, only to be blindsided with a terrible betrayal, especially when you are in a very vulnerable state. Imagine what this poster felt when she found out that her husband is with another woman. A woman introduced as his friend and told not to worry about, just days after she gave birth to their firstborn, when he claimed he was out of town for business. Let's start with the original post. I don't know what to do. We just had our baby 6 weeks ago, and when he told me about his business trip, I got a little upset because I'm all alone here. And this is our first child, so I don't know what the heck we're doing most of the time. I couldn't just refuse to let him go, however, because I knew when I met him that traveling is part of his job, so he left. He's very supportive otherwise, very happy about being a father, and he called us maybe 5 to 6 times a day to see if we're doing all right. Last night I was scrolling down IG, and there he was in the background of a local celebrity I followed, sitting in a restaurant with his friend from uni, the woman who always disliked me, and who he told me not to worry about. He's been on this trip since Monday, and is supposed to come back next Monday. I'm so heartbroken, I don't know what to do. I will obviously talk to him when he gets home, but what are my options afterwards? I'm a stay-at-home wife right now, and I haven't worked since I graduated 5 years ago. My husband makes a good living and he didn't think me working was a necessity. I don't have a family except him. If I leave him, how am I going to fend for my son? Who is going to take care of him if I start working? I feel so trapped. Edit. I'm so overwhelmed with the amount of messages and support. I'm going to make it clear here that I'm not going to jump into any conclusions yet. I just had my suspicions about the friend, and I was always wary of her. I'm going to give my husband the benefit of the doubt, of course, but unfortunately my gut feeling is telling me this is what I'm dreading the most. Thank you. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I said this in another comment, but the picture might be a few days old. The influencer might not have uploaded it in the day she took it. So maybe try to video call your husband, and maybe ask to see the view of his hotel room. Try to ask him stuff that force him to speak more about where he is, so you can know for sure that he lied about the business trip. Also, if he tells you the name of the hotel, you can try to call and see if a sympathetic employee can give you any info about him being or not being there. I thought so too, but she had made Instagram stories as well in the same restaurant. I like the idea of trying to video call him. I know Insta celebrities that also post days or weeks old stories. They line up all their content in advance, so they can take a break, but it looks like they are active. They also do it to try and prevent stalkers. Don't jump to conclusions until you have ascertained where your husband actually is. Just out of interest, do you know where the restaurant was? It might sound like a stupid question, but I think it's relevant. If you can't be sure the restaurant is local, then there's a tiny chance this IG influencer may have been in the same place at the same time somewhere out of town. Calling 5 or 6 times a day doesn't sound like something a cheating husband would do either. I hope it turns out to be a misunderstanding. I agree that it's possible he's not cheating. The phone calls don't mean anything though. When I travel for work, the cheaters are the ones talking to their partners multiple times a day. Now for the first update. Hello again, I'm so happy I found you guys here. My husband is home now, but it was what I feared. I don't know if I made a terrible job of explaining the situation in my last post, but the influencer lives in our city, and she was in a restaurant in our city. My husband was supposed to be out of town for business. I took the advice you gave me about influencers not usually posting same-day pictures, but it still struck me as an oddity because he has never mentioned having dinner with this friend. I tried to contact the influencer, but she has over 1.5 million followers. As I said, my husband's work includes a lot of traveling, and he usually do a video tour in his hotel room for me or send me some pictures. This time he didn't, so yesterday when he called, I asked him to FaceTime me to see our son. He told me to wait because the room was messy, and he called after 5 minutes. We talked and he saw our son, and then I asked him for a mini tour. He showed me some parts and I took some screenshots. My husband laughed about me taking screenshots and was a bit confused. It isn't that unusual for me to do anyway, so he didn't make a fuss. I went later to Hotels.com and started comparing pictures. I found the hotel within 15 minutes. It's less than 10 minutes from our place. It was a bit late, but I took my son and went anyway. The front desk didn't want to tell me what room he was in. I asked her to tell him to come down, but she refused to do that too since it was midnight. I texted him to come down to the reception. When he came down, he was like he was seeing a ghost. I told him to take me to his hotel room now. He refused and asked me to go home, and that he would explain everything later. I told him if he didn't take me to his room now and without warning his friend, I will scream. I don't know why I wanted to see her. It's like even after finding out he's been in town all this time, and even after seeing the look on his face, I still wanted to catch them to drive the message home, so my heart doesn't cave to his excuses and explanations that he was already starting on. He refused, however, to take me up, so I just left with my baby. He came home maybe an hour after me and he wanted to talk and explain when I'm ready. I'm not ready yet, so I asked him to move out and leave me be for the time being. He agreed. I don't know why he did this, why he married me. I'm 29 and he's 39, and his mistress is also 39. She's a single mom and they're more compatible and they get along very well. And they obviously love each other. So why didn't he just be with her instead and save us all the heartbreak? Honestly, what's wrong with people? More update. I'm sorry, I don't want to make any more updates. My husband has agreed to moving out of our apartment. Since we have a prenup, I'm essentially not entitled to anything, but he has offered the apartment since I have nowhere to go. I told him I needed more assurance that the apartment is for me and my son. He's going to transfer the deeds in my name, whatever that means. I'm also going to get alimony or allowance or whatever it's called until my son is old enough to start looking for jobs. All of this conversation was recorded. On Monday, I'm going to talk to a lawyer to make sure what my husband promised me is going to happen. In return, he asked me for separation and not divorce for 2 years. I agreed. About the other woman, I don't know if it's worth my energy to find out more. They have been FWB when they're single, but never had a relationship. They've known each other for 20 years. I didn't want to hear anything about them. I always had my suspicions. He made the usual excuses about her meaning nothing. It was a mistake, and this was their first time because he felt neglected because I wasn't as interested in him as before the baby. He swore he never slept with her during our marriage until this week. I don't believe him. If they end up together, I wouldn't be surprised even though he assured me it will never happen because he doesn't love her. Now for more comments before the final update. The hotel was less than 10 minutes from your house, but he showed up like an hour late, instead of running after you. Obviously he had to go to her to talk the plan with her. Piffed, idiot. Exactly. There is nothing left to say to him. Don't listen to that nonsense, get a lawyer. Split. Man, that's a horrible way to be treated. Sorry for the outcome. I'm sorry too. I'm so sad. Why didn't he just ask me for divorce if he wasn't happy with me? Why did he make a child with me? He is sorry because he got caught. I'm a 40-year-old male, and I remember my dad always cheated on my mom. I remember her crying at night but always took him back. Finally, she had enough. To this day, I can't imagine doing that to my wife or kids. A divorce would be the proper way to go before cheating. No matter what, it's hard on the family. Once again, sorry. Be strong for you and child. Read this a few days ago and was hoping that maybe it was a late posted photo. I'm really sorry about the outcome. It is better for you to know the truth though, and good on you for kicking him out. You deserve a lot better than that. Now for the final update. Hi again. I wasn't planning a new update. I am so appreciative of all the support I've got here. But also, I have received a big amount of hate. It's a small number compared with the majority of people who showed me support, but I don't know why it got to me anyway. Maybe because I already feel vulnerable, or maybe because these things were always in the back of my head. I was attacked for being a stay-at-home wife, for being young, for being a gold digger, for having an older husband, for having a rich husband, for having a baby with my husband, for exposing my husband's infidelity, for not having a safety net, for trusting my husband, for not trusting my husband enough, for demanding that the man I love leave our home after he cheated on me, and it goes on. I should have just ignored everything and concentrated on healing, and I'm going to do that, but I have a small final update to share with the thousands that cared and supported. I don't have a family because I'm an only child. My parents died when I was 5. My grandmother raised me, but she died when I was 20. Many have requested an update about his friend. I texted her that she's an ugly, pathetic, cheap woman who always hated me and always was jealous of me. That even if she ended my marriage and ruined my happiness and the chance for my baby to grow up with both his parents and the future siblings we've planned, she will never have my husband because she's an ugly, pathetic, cheap woman. It has never happened, and it will never happen. But if her goal in life was to sneak around in hotels with married men, then congratulations. I told her I wished what she got from him was worth ruining my life, but that I'm happy that I at least don't need to have her in my life again. I didn't feel any better, to be honest, and regret stooping so low. She texted me back a picture of her and my husband at the hotel with the winking emoji. I forwarded it to my husband. This was yesterday. He showed up around dinner and told me everything. He slept with her during our relationship. He told me he was sorry and that he was relieved now that I knew everything because she can't hold it against him anymore. I kicked him out. I regret knowing all this. We had our first meeting with the lawyers today. The prenup covers my husband's assets up until we got married. He comes from a wealthy family, and I'm not to touch any of that. My husband is self-made, however, so I'm entitled to 50% of everything he made since we got married. My husband also offered our apartment as an apology, even if the apartment was from his family, and he's going to pay child support. It's really all I need right now and much more than I expected. Divorce takes a couple of years or even more sometimes, especially when children are involved. I think my husband lives with the hopes that I'll forgive him down the road. I know he's always been generous, but he must have some kind of hope to make me this offer because it can't be just remorse. He apologized for hurting me, and I can't even describe how lonely and devastated I am right now. He and my son are my only family and I've lost him. And all for what? I can't believe I still love him so very much, and since he moved out, I haven't stopped crying. I miss him. How could he do this to us for an ugly, pathetic, cheap woman? Get everything agreed upon and in writing, quickly. He might be willing to give stuff up right now, but he might change his tune in the coming weeks or months. Do not trust him to keep his word on anything. That's what the lawyers are going to do. I'm unfortunately very ignorant in these things. I just want my home and my baby safe. Do you have your own lawyer? If not, the lawyers you met with are your husband's lawyers. Get your own representation to comb through the prenup for an infidelity clause. I strongly suspect he's being so generous now because he may be vulnerable to something in the prenup. Contact an attorney of your own as soon as possible. They will end up getting paid by your husband. Consultations are free. If he has moved out, change the locks on the door or at the very least set up boundaries as to when he can come over. Do not give him unfettered access like he still lives there. He's handed you a crap sandwich, but you don't have to eat it exactly how he's serving it to you. Your husband is so weird because he was never going to tell about the fact they slept together if it weren't for that picture. He has probably not told me everything either. They never tell you more than what you already know. And you shouldn't torture yourself with it. Take this time to heal and focus on your son. Screw him and his side piece. It's toxic energy you don't need. Best of luck. Please do not let this man talk his way back into your life. Family can be chosen. Make friends, create a life for your son, but don't let loneliness bring him back. The woman, though a horrible human, has no loyalty to you, but your soon-to-be ex does. She did not hold him as a hostage and force herself upon him. He was a willing participant. His apologies are to cleanse his own conscience. Nowhere does he accept accountability for his role here. He wants to make you this sweet offer, so down the road you think, oh, he was so lovely to do things to help me, maybe we can fix it. He wants back in, while painting himself to be a person who was too victimized by this woman. Please don't feed that delusion. Now for the last story. I, 27 female, am afraid of my ex, 25 male, showing up to the hospital when I give birth to our son. Long story short, I was in a serious relationship with my ex-boyfriend for a little over a year. I became pregnant unexpectedly at the end of our relationship. When I found out, I told him about it and gave him the choice to be involved or not. I am at a point in my life where I am able and willing to raise a child on my own. However, I wanted to give him an opportunity to be a father to our son in some capacity. I really loved this man and believed I would marry him someday based on conversations we had when we were together. But when I told him about my pregnancy, he totally freaked out, said he wanted me to terminate it, and even went as far as to send me papers via an attorney asking me not to contact him. I obliged to this and haven't talked to him since. Unfortunately, even though we haven't been in contact for nearly my entire pregnancy, he has still continuously gone out of his way to harm me emotionally. He has contacted my boss and the agencies I work with about this, and has even gone as far to have his family members and friends contacts my OBGYN office so many times that I had to switch practices at 24 weeks pregnant. His behavior is scaring me, and although I've asked people both in my life and our life for help, I'm not getting anywhere. At this point, I am afraid of him and what he might do. I have never asked him for anything during this time, financial or otherwise, nor have I badmouthed him or went against his wishes concerning his privacy. I have only been trying to do what is best for our son, and I cannot figure out what his motivations are to treat us this way. I begged my parents to block his phone number and asked that they not inform him when I give birth. They refused to do so, and it's making me extremely anxious. I don't want him showing up at the hospital at all, especially during a time that it could affect the health of my son or myself. My response to this was to invite them to the hospital after I've given birth, but they are not willing to accept this. They insist on driving me to the hospital in their car and staying the entire time. I set to be induced tomorrow and am now more anxious than ever. All I want is to have my son in peace, while feeling safe. Does anyone have any other ideas on how I can approach this? I already plan on leaving my son's father off of the birth certificate. Thank you for reading this. Call the hospital and ask if they will enforce no attendance birth, including your parents. Many hospitals will protect the mother and prevent people from coming to the birth. If the hospital does not do that, call your best friend and ask them to stand guard for you. Thank you very much for this. I did not realize that was an option and will make sure to use no attendance birth when I check in. I have been worried about my family sitting in the lobby and badgering staff to let them in against my wishes. They have made me feel very guilty about my decision to give birth alone. But the way I see it, I went through my entire pregnancy alone. I might as well do this by myself too. Just to let you know, labor and delivery nurses don't play. They will kick anyone and everyone out who is stressing out the mom. They want to make sure that your labor is as stress-free as possible. Give them the names of everyone who isn't allowed to be at the birth of your baby and isn't allowed to visit. Register as private. Give them pictures of them if you can. Have someone else take you. At the hospitals I've worked at, they have a security desk at the entrance to the birthing unit for this very reason, and you have to either be an employee or on the guest list to even be allowed to set foot on that wing.